Hello, everyone. I am back. I want to apologize for my hiatus. I've been doing some stuff on my other channel, and here recently I have been suffering from a pretty severe cold. I don't believe that it was Ovid K19A, but it was just really bad allergies and stuff. So hopefully I can make it through this video pretty well because this video had to be made. Sort of a after reaction. If I had known that this was going to be shown today, I would have done like a live stream reaction just to have that for an archive. I know that I'm approaching 100 subscribers, and I want to thank all of you who have subscribed to this channel so far. If you're new to this video, this channel, I am Positive Negativity, and I would like to welcome you to the channel. Please subscribe, like this video if you like it. If you don't, give it a down vote. This is going to be a sort of a celebration of today. That this is a holiday, folks. Like we've been waiting for this for a long time. Anyone that's a Zelda fan like myself, who is as especially for me, who is as old as the franchise itself, that this is a real holiday for us, and we finally have not only some new footage from the Breath of the Wild sequel, but we have a title, a new name for it, and that there's going to be some slight debate amongst English-speaking people of what the pronunciation of the title is. You know, I'm not really sure if anyone has thought of this yet. I don't think I'm the first one, but is it Tears of the Kingdom or is it Tears of the Kingdom? And I want you all to be thinking about this amongst yourselves, because no one, as far as I'm aware, no one from Nintendo has said the name aloud. So that I don't know if that's intentional for there to be some sort of a mystery of that, but oh well, you know, that's what we're going to be stuck with. So anyway, Nintendo dropped a direct today, and I was I sort of knew that there was going to be something mentioned about Zelda, and of course I assumed it. I mean, hell, they've waited so long to release any information, and in typical Nintendo fashion, especially Eiji Onuma, the director of this franchise, you know, they're always late. You know, if you consider the you know, the drama that was around the first Breath of the Wild, you know, that game was delayed like what, 5 times. So you know, it ended up being 2017 when it was released, and I want to say that it was originally expected in like 2015 or 2016, and the game was not released until later on. And of course, that's what's happened with the sequel. And you know, as most of you know, if you're familiar or have been following Breath of the Wild 2, as it's been called up until now, this game has been sort of, at least it was designed on the bones of Breath of the Wild. This is the first direct sequel to a Zelda game ever, as far as I'm aware. Not counting the like the Four Swords adventures from A Link to the Past. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in this video. This is going to be more of a discussion about Zelda in general, rather than just this new trailer and the name of the new game. But this is a new it is a sequel, and for the first time, and it's been built on the bones of the original Breath of the Wild, and you can really tell in this trailer that I'm going to show in a second. And those of you that were watching or whatever, you know, I know it really went by fast. You know, I think the trailer is like less than a minute. It might even be less than 30 seconds long. You know, it started out being foreboding and brooding and stuff, showing all these glyphs and almost like hieroglyphic figures and stuff. And of course, we all knew it was going to be Zelda, because everyone in the Nintendo Direct live chat was pissed because we've not seen anything, and they almost baited us into believing that there was not going to be anything said about Zelda. And I was like, "Are you shitting me?" You know, I've sit here waited through Splatoon and Pikmin, and you know, no disrespect to those games or whatever, but look, that's not what I'm here for. You know, I'm not going to say I'm too old for games like that, but I'm just not interested in that stuff. But Zelda, I certainly am. You know, that's a mainstay, one of the tent poles of Nintendo that has kept me around for over 30 years, and here we are. And so it's a really good day. Speaking of this game, we let's see how long this went on. This stream was an hour and 16 minutes. I'm screen recording here, obviously. Nothing has changed since the last time I made a video. I've not really figured out OBS that well, and I think I'm just going to start like cropping this and putting it in Final Cut instead of fooling with this stream, so you don't have to see my screen every time. But let's skip down towards the end, and I want to say it's like at the very end of this stream. So yeah, this gentleman here, like he's a trip. He is. And I want to comment just for a second about Nintendo. They are, I guess to Americans and even people abroad too. They have not lost the Japanese sense of humor. They have a very quirkiness, and I don't want to use the word weird because I don't want that to be an insult, because it definitely is not. It's actually a compliment, because they have somehow maintained their charm throughout all these years and have not lost it. Like they are a lot like most of us, especially inside, but they are projecting this outward, that they're still kids. They're like Peter Pan. They don't want to grow up. They want to keep you immersed in your childhood, and that's something that Sony and Microsoft, for their own reasons and for obvious reasons, they cannot really embrace that, because they're more of the adolescent and older type of appeal, whereas Nintendo is sort of keeping us in this childhood dream that we've been in, especially those of us, if you're like me and you're nearing 40 years old. A lot of people used to say, like, you're nearing 40 years old and you're still playing video games, but the average gamer now is over 30 years old. So like that's really crazy to think about. So anyway, I'm going to have to mute this, because I know that even the images here are probably going to be struck by copyright. And so I'm kind of concerned that it's going to be flagged, but you'll get the visual here anyway. There's not really any audio cues of this anyway. Like there's some music, of course, but beginning the trailer, we see these glyphs on the wall, and this is sort of a continuation of what we saw in the original. And I'm going to pause it here on some of these things so we can show this. As you can see, like these are our enemies from like the goblins, Boko goblins. I think that's what they're called. Don't hate me. Like, it's been a while since I played Breath of the Wild, but it's showing them here, and these look like Hyrule soldiers maybe, and so it's obviously telling us a story to begin with. You have to excuse me. I'm having to deal with a runny nose here from my cold. And this thing here is very weird. I wonder if this is going to be a boss of some kind, because check this out. And it looked like it said 999s all the way around, or is this some kind of a tribute to Ganon? Because that looks like the princess, right? So I'll just let this keep playing. I'm geeking out here. I know that all the rest of you are too. So we've got our first shot of Link here. He's got an interesting shield on his back. We've got the blue tunic, and which I'm a fan of. That harkens back to old school Zelda, and we've got some interesting stuff to look at here too. He's got something right here on his side, and I'm not really sure. We'll see if we can get another frame in here of that. Like I mean, it almost looks like shotgun shells or something, like it's ammo. But definitely not a Sheikah slate to be found. And we've got obviously his quill, and he's got his bow and arrows stuff here. But we've got the Hylian boots on. He's looks pretty vanilla as far as his outfit's concerned. And Are we seeing a glove on this side? I'm not really sure yet about the hand. It looks like he's wearing a glove, so kind of cueing in the Metal Gear Solid 5 or Star Wars Luke Skywalker kind of thing about the hand. I really think that they that they sort of missed the opportunity to call this the like the Phantom Breath of the Wild or something like that. So, all right, so we start with this like epic plunge that he takes, and here's another shot of it as well. Like, look, this is Hyrule. This is what we had in the original Breath of the Wild, but we see a lot of changes here. I mean, check this out. We've got a lot of, and if you hear my dogs bark in the background, I apologize. They're probably barking at the mailman. We've got Death Mountain here. This looks to be maybe Hyrule Castle, and it's really hard to tell just by the lighting here, but it seems as if multiple structures in Hyrule have been raised, and they're all in the sky. I mean, you can see like, huge pieces here. Now, once again, I'm going to go back to what I originally said. This game, of course, is built not only on the bones of Breath of the Wild, but it was originally intended as an expansion for Breath of the Wild, and so that led me to be concerned about this game, because I was like, okay, we're looking at potentially not a full game, and it could end up being like a scenario after Ocarina of Time, where Majora's Mask was, it's not as long of a game, and I want to say now, I'm the historian in me, I'm having some dementia here about it, but that game, I think, of course, it was built on the same engine as Ocarina of Time, and it was sort of it was kind of a sequel to Ocarina of Time, or a spiritual sequel anyway. It was not it was not an official sequel. This is, however, an official sequel, and so we're getting a lot of the same landmarks. And check this UFO thingy out that he's landed on. Is this going to be something that's just constantly flying around? We've got an interesting little glyph being lit up right here. It almost looks like it's been projected onto the ground, and or it's some kind of ancient crop circles that he's seeing here. But look at the devastation here. I mean, it looks almost like a lot of the ground has been messed up. Now, this looks like familiar territory that we've seen before. And once again, it's been a while since I played Breath of the Wild. So, some of these landmarks and stuff are going to be, they're going to come back to me, hopefully. But, I mean, as you can see, like, a lot of this stuff is going to be the same, but what I'm noticing, and I'm going to have to back up here because this is the end of the trailer, but I'll show you some other stuff again. We're going to go over this a couple of times. We have the title reveal, and I was so excited for this because and I'm devastated in a way because I don't want to dwell on this too much because I know this is probably just an obvious goof on my part, but Tears of the Kingdom or Tears of the Kingdom. And I say tears because it seems almost as if, and there's a theme here, that as you can see, the Master Sword, this is sort of the fabric in which this ancient simulation, if you will, is built upon. And it's almost as if it is tearing at the seams. So, and once again, I don't want to run down a rabbit hole with that too much, but just keep that in mind because, I could end up being the oracle here, and I may have figured out the true name of the game before it's actually said, but who knows? I'm probably wrong. All right, let's back up again, and we'll go back to the beginning. And once again, we're seeing these things, and this is almost like reminiscent of the beginning of Breath of the Wild when Link first walks out and sees the broad wild of Hyrule. That this sprawling open world that turned into an epic adventure, one of the best open world games ever made. I'm not going to shower the game with just universal praise because look, I didn't. There were so many videos I was going to make in the time that I'm here with you now versus the last video that I made. And mostly the stuff I've been talking about has been Resident Evil and The Last of Us, but I didn't really get to talk about my love for Nintendo, which is where my roots are. And so, but speaking about this, it really harkens back to just the traditional Zelda in and of itself. When Breath of the Wild was announced, the series had never been open world. Okay, so and if you want to if you want to consider an open world game, I would say that the first three Zeldas were as close to open world games as you got, and not they were linear, but they were still open world. And I'll give you an example of this. This is going to be a bit controversial, hopefully not to the most of you, but I'm a huge fan of the first three games, and I'm not as much of the first game. You know, it's not only is it really hard, but like the game aesthetically is not that pleasing. Like there's just a lot of redundancy, and it's not a pretty game at all. The second game is very interesting because they went with a side-scrolling game, and then there's an overworld map that you go through. But the third game, which is A Link to the Past, and I'm going to do a separate video on A Link to the Past, just a retrospective on it, because it deserves that. I believe A Link to the Past, and this is, I'm going to do a countdown eventually of my top games of all time, in my opinion. Spoiler alert, A Link to the Past, I believe, is the greatest game of all time. And for several reasons. But not to jump into all those, but for one of those reasons is that is the first, what I believe, open world game that I ever played. And because you had multiple angles of attack, you could choose to complete certain parts of the story at different times of the game. And so Breath of the Wild is the same way. You know, you did not have to conquer all of the divine beasts. In fact, you didn't have to conquer any of them. You could have went directly to the castle, challenged Ganon, and then finished the game, which, you know, of course, we all would find out how hard that is to do, but people have done it in record-breaking time, you know, speedrunners, the devils that they are. But, you know, this back to this scene, you know, this is very reminiscent of the opening of Breath of the Wild, you know, when he first, you know, runs out. And now, of course, this is coming into this scene, you know, it's not the same. You know, we just transitioned, and that was a little trick that they used. This is not the same transition as what you're going to see in the game. This is something totally different. And so he's obviously on a platform in the sky, and I really hope that they have built large, explorable environments that are accessible and are going to be diverse when it comes to not only terrain, obstacles, challenges, but enemies. And I'm going to touch on that just a little bit more in a second. But, you know, back to Link's outfit, you know, that we're curiously missing a Sheikah Slate. So, you know, that could or could not be a part of this game now. And I personally, I hope that it isn't. And I'm going to tell you why. The first game, being Breath of the Wild, it had a lot of issues when it came to pacing, because you would go to, whereas in a normal Zelda game, the formulaic Zelda, you've got dungeons, and the shrines were more or less treated as dungeons, and of course your main dungeons, being the divine beast, they're not really as much dungeons. You know, they barely had any enemies in there. You had some bosses at the end of them, but they all looked the same. They all sort of behaved the same. They had different attacks, but you know, it's mostly the same stuff. Excuse me. This is not. That's not fun to me. You know, that's in fact, it almost came off as lazy development, and almost as if like that was a shoe-in at the last second to just add some stuff to do, because I get it. That this being the first true open world Zelda, which this series has always been meant for, by the way. I mean, this is the only way that I would ever play this series again. In this format is open world. It's meant to be like this. There was a lot of criticism, and myself included, that the original Breath of the Wild, Hyrule was empty. There are a lot of variations of enemies, but yet there's not a lot of encounters. There's vast portions of the map that it's almost like you're just wandering in nothingness, in an abyss, and so. And while I like that in a way, because if you really want to shed some stress, put in Breath of the Wild. Play that. Wander those fields and stuff. And I get it, that there's sort of a story element in what, I mean, if you want to call it a story, the game's doesn't have much of a story, but there is kind of an element of that as to why there's not as many people. There's not, as much stuff going on, but that's kind of like, I don't know about you all, but I feel cheated in a way. I wanted to see the sprawling, Hyrule, and have, lots of people there. And of course you do have settlements. You've got towns and stuff like that. You've got Kakariko Village, that obviously has people there, but it's still, people are few and far between to be found. And then when you're in the wild, the challenge that you have, it's several portions of the game, it's just not there because it's empty. And then, of course, the variety of bosses and enemy types, they're not there as well. The one thing I will say that it did well is with the Guardians. They are presented to you as almost like an unbeatable foe at the beginning of the game, and they pretty much are. There's ways that you can beat them, but they're more than likely they're going to beat you, because you're going to have to be really good at parrying. And if I'm not mistaken, you don't have the tools capable of doing that in the beginning of the game to beat them. And so that's at the end. By the time you're fully equipped, they're not as tough anymore, but they're still a very, very tough enemy, and I love that. I love the idea of that. And then one final thing before I go to this next scene, I thought that not having a physical embodiment of Ganon, such as Ganondorf, was a mistake. I know that it's like tried and true. It's almost like cliche at this point, that he's Link is fighting Ganondorf and stuff like that. I know we've seen that, and a lot of people are like, oh, okay, put it to bed, let's get a new enemy or something like that. But just remember, that's his, he is the Joker to Link's Batman. That's obviously who you're going to be fighting. And so I think that we're going to see Ganondorf in this game. I believe that just from the visual cues that the original trailer gave us, I think that it's almost like all of this negative energy. I can't remember the stuff that's coming together. The Blight is trying to form a physical structure for Ganon so that he can come back in his own human form or whatever he is. It's unclear if they're going to say that he is a Gerudo in this, but I think that they might have said that in Breath of the Wild. You guys can correct me in the comments about this. But anyway, I digress. I'm gonna move forward here. All right, so we've got the epic plunge and a shot of Link's butt here. Sorry about that. But so it does appear that he's wearing the Power Glove here. So like that's going to be interesting. What I want to know from you, I want you to comment and tell me, what sort of powers do you think that Link is going to have with this new glove? I'm going to make some predictions just offhand. Listen, I've had no time to think about this. This is just off the cuff, so it might sound a bit corny, but I think that he's going to have some form of hook shot capability with this hand, and as you can see, he doesn't have the glider on him, right? So he's going to have some form of capability to make like a cyber glider with his hand. There's going to be cyber tools that he has with this new, almost like phantom hand, if you want to call it that. And what do these tiers of the kingdom or tears of the kingdom mean? What is that going to feature in this story? And by story, I really hope that story is a part of this. That they're going to make this a story. And I apologize, I have I've went back to my other YouTube page. Anyway, so back to this. All right, so I want you to look at the verticality of this. That is a long way to fall. And just in these last few frames, all right, and see, I've already skipped it. Let me go back. This is like thousands of feet that he's falling, and this is I'm sure that this is in game. And let me go back one more time, and I'm going to freeze frame it here. Just as soon as we can see Hyrule. Here, let's go back one more time. Right there. I'm just going to stop it there, just for example. One more. There we go. Okay. You can start to see structures of Hyrule, and I want you to make a prediction as to whether or not you think this is going to be a loading screen, or if this is all going to be, because I kind of think that the fall is going to serve as sort of a impromptu loading screen, like that, almost like the doors in Resident Evil opening up, like that. That's going to give the world time to load in. Also, that leads me to another topic on this too that's been widely debated. Is this a Nintendo Switch game? Let me know in the comments if you think it's going to be a Nintendo Switch game, or if this is going to be a Switch Pro, as it's being called, or a next generation game. It looks to me like that they're still using the same assets from the original engine. That unless if you all can correct me if you've heard otherwise, this looks to be the same assets from Breath of the Wild. The graphics look a lot. They're still almost cel shaded, very Studio Ghibli style. So it really seems like that it's the same game in terms of the visuals anyway. All right, so let's go forward, and it looks like Link is hopping on a almost like some sort of a system to reel him in back up top. So that's going to be like a prehistoric looking elevator that's going to take him back to the skies. And then we've got a new, obviously a new set of places here that seem to be in the sky as well. And is this going to be like a tribute or an ode to Skyloft? Possibly. And look how it's going to be funny if they make you wear different outfits again due to the climate. But look at this prehistoric looking axe that he's got here. So is he going to be stripped of all of his stuff? It kind of seems that way. And we're going to have to rebuild our armor and almost start from anew. I'm predicting that now that's going to happen. And here he is again. This is sort of the same thing. And once again, we did not see the entire fall, so I'm sort of getting an idea that we're going to get a kind of a scene, of him falling, and then it could go to a loading screen, and then we're going to zap back, and then he's going to still be falling, and we can see that. I'm just sort of like, it didn't show the entire fall. That's what I'm saying. So I'm sort of predicting that we're going to have a loading screen when he falls to the ground, because there's like, guys, there's a lot of stuff here to load up. You've got the original Hyrule map, and if you're like me and you went to the edge of the map, how cool would it be if they expanded Hyrule? And we actually got to explore beyond Hyrule a little bit. That would be really cool. And new enemies. Come on, give us some new enemies in this. And so we've got the final shot, and he's on this glider here, and I'm shooting a blank here when it comes to the Skyloft creatures, the big birds that Link would ride. That they're curiously absent from here. So obviously, as far as canon is concerned, I don't think they're going to be a part of this. But who knows? They might be. It could be like when they bring back the wolf from Twilight Princess. If that's going to be a thing. So where's the horse? Is Link's horse going to be a part of this? Is the riding mechanics going to be the same, or they're going to change it? I fully assume that Link's going to have a horse again. It's probably just, of course, going to be a ground mode of transportation. And then in the sky, is he going to have a way to fly other than these, glorified hoverboards that it seems like he's on, right now? It would be really cool if Link had some sort of a squirrel suit, and could glide around instead of that darn glider that we're used to. Because look, Horizon has already ripped this off, and they gave Aloy, they gave her a glider. So like that was. I think it's time to evolve from that, and I'm pretty sure that they probably will. I know this video is going on a little bit longer than I thought it would be, but just to touch on, and I'm going to show the title screen at the end, and this is sort of curious as well. Like we've got, I don't know what this creature is here, but it almost looks like a dragon again. So that are we going to see those dragons in the sky again? Is that going to be something? What all of the original Breath of the Wild do you guys think are going to be a part of it? Tears or Tears of the Kingdom? There's a lot to process in this. I know I'm not going to cover all of it, but just right offhand, I'm trying to think back to Breath of the Wild. Like my biggest gripes. I know Nintendo, unfortunately, they have a long history of being tone deaf to their audience and giving the people what they want. But I do believe that they have sort of mellowed on that in recent years, and I don't believe that the shrines are going to be a thing. Personally, I don't. I know there's a lot of you that like them, and my second playthrough of Breath of the Wild, which I have done recently in the last 6 months, I didn't complete it again, but I started it again. The shrines were not as tiresome as I remember, but once you do like 20 of them, you're just like, damn it, it's the same thing, and it's the same animation, when you complete one of them. And it's just the same stuff over and over, the same reward every single time. So it's kind of like, they just put this in to make the game longer. And so, I don't want there to be any shrines. Give us real dungeons this time around. Even a water temple. Speaking of water, are we going to be able to swim? let's hear some predictions in the comments. Are we going to be able to swim? Interesting, because Link could swim in Breath of the Wild, but he couldn't dive. I want to see some water exploration. All of those of you that are what is that, thalassophobia, whatever that is. Like I was, especially as a kid. I still am now. I don't like water. I don't like heights either, but I can deal with it in video games. But the water part has always just been real. I don't know. Just the idea of something coming up behind me and swallowing me whole is still terrifying to me, even now that I'm nearly 40 years old. And it's Nintendo's fault, by the way. I would go back all the way to. And this is going to be a nostalgia trip, and I'm going to talk about this in another video, but I'll touch on it. back in 96, 97, whenever that was the year that that the Nintendo 64 was to be released, the a lot of you that are watching this, especially if you are around like 20 years old or so, you would not understand this. I know that places like Walmart, Kmart, if they're still around, I don't think they are, but Target, all your retail stores that still do a like a kiosk layout that you can go and actually handle the controller, play some of the games and stuff, like basically demo the stuff in the store. GameSpot, if they're still around, or is it GameStop? Yeah, is it? Yeah, it's GameStop, not GameSpot. That's sorry, I'm having to wipe my nose again. The experience of going to a retail center and not only playing the arcades that were up front, like at Walmart, like, shout out to that. Mortal Kombat, baby. Street Fighter. But going back to the electronics section as a kid, and I want you to imagine for a second that, you've been playing Super Nintendo, and the greatest graphical achievement at that point that you've been aware of was playing Star Fox or Donkey Kong Country. And you walk into Walmart and go back to the electronics section, and you see this kiosk of the new Nintendo Ultra 64, as it was being called. And aside from playing arcades, like I think it was Cruis'n USA, there was no experience like seeing Mario 64 for the first time, because that was their big bad game. Like that was their, of course that was their halo to show off. And it was there in the flesh, and I remember there being a queue line of at least 20 kids that was lined up on a school day to play Mario. And I can remember kids, myself included, running away from that display, crying because we had made it. And as far as I can remember, it was the full game. It wasn't a demo. The full game was there. And we made it all the way to the and guys, just forgive me because I can't remember this, but it's the sunken ship level, and there's a name for it. And you dive down to the sunken ship, and basically Davy Jones' locker, and you find the treasure chest, but yet there's a surprise waiting for you. And you see this face of this creature with these just satanic looking eyes staring at you, and then come to find out, it's like a 50-foot long fucking eel. Pardon my French. But needless to say, I did not have an underwater phobia then. But at that moment, that when Mario died because of being hit by this thing, thankfully there was not a scene of a fatality of him getting either swallowed whole or chomped to bits by this thing and blood going everywhere underwater like a shark attack. Because, they might as well have done that. I don't know what possessed Shigeru Miyamoto or any of those developers to put that in that game. But that was just, it was wrong. It was completely wrong. And the only other game of that era that I remember that did that to me was Tomb Raider. There were some underwater scenes in that were very similar. Because the controls of your character, you feel helpless underwater. He doesn't control the same. You're having to use that joystick and stuff. And for us at the time, we did not have the muscle memory then like we do now of using joysticks on controllers. That was the first time that most of us had a joystick in our hands at all. because the PlayStation at the time, most kids, you were either going to be PlayStation or Nintendo 64, and I want to say the PlayStation was released before the 64 was, but we didn't have one, and we had not, and I say we, me and my brother, we didn't have one, and we had not played with a joystick before, and the weird crazy shape that the 64 controller was anyway, that was oh my god, it was insane, and we felt helpless. And in '96, I was 10 years old, and so I was traumatized. And I know I might be a little bit theatrical here and exaggerating stuff, but I don't remember it that way. That's exactly how I remember it. So, getting back to Zelda, what this means for Zelda. In the years following this, Zelda would attempt to one up this Thalassophobia with the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time, and it was the same sort of thing. Like you had these underwater fears, and I'm not gonna lie to you all. Of course I play this stuff today. Like I'll play it, and it doesn't bother me as much. But as a kid, I put Ocarina of Time down. My mother finished that. She was a big time gamer back then. God bless her, rest her soul. She loved Nintendo, and I'm gonna do a video just about her one of these days, about her games that she loved. But she finished that, and of course she ended up beating Ocarina of Time before me and my brother did, and we were so pissed off because she spoiled the ending for us. We came home from school one day and she was she was fighting Ganondorf. What? No, right? No, we missed all this shit. So anyway, will there be a water temple? Is what I'm saying. All that to get to this. Will there be a water temple? Is there going to be traditional enemies? I would love to see a return of some form of wizard like Aghanim, if I'm saying that right. There was also another one in the Minish Cap that was really neat. Just stuff like that. Like just add some cool shit, Nintendo. Like throw everything at us. Give us a game that we're going to be playing years from now, just like the original Breath of the Wild, but without those caveats that I think mostly. And of course, the biggest one I haven't mentioned yet. Most everyone agrees that what I'm saying are caveats. Like I said, some people like the shrines, but I don't. And I stand firm with that. And the last but not least, this is the last thing I'm going to mention before I end this. The weapons. Weapon deterioration. Deterioration. Will that be a factor? Are you going to have weapons break? I'm totally assuming that you will. Just seeing that scene with Link climbing, and he had that prehistoric looking axe or hatchet. I think they're going to break. Will the Master Sword be a factor? Will it even be a part of the game or until the very end? That was sort of a bone of contention. That there was a that the Master Sword would actually break, and then you would have to. I think it would come back in your inventory, or hell, either that, or you would have to go back to the Lost Woods to get it again. I don't remember, but that was just. I did not like the weapons deteriorating. I did not like that. I didn't like weapons breaking in the middle of a fucking fight, And then you're like, oh God, I'm out of weapons now. What do I do? And then, the strategist, on the other hand, will say, well, you just didn't prepare properly. And, that all goes into preparation. I'm sure that's what Nintendo would say as well. But that's just, I don't know, it came across to me as annoying more than it was anything else. And granted, I don't want to be just running into a fight and be overpowered. However, a game that I mentioned before, A Link to the Past, there were several tools that you had to use. Your bow and arrow was more important. There were certain enemies in A Link to the Past that you had to have certain tools, like the hook shot for, the boomerang for. There were powers that you had. You had a magic meter. That sort of thing. You had to use a lantern, a fire rod, an ice rod, stuff like that. Give us those things back. You know, and instead of having all these breakable weapons. But look, this video's went on way too long anyway, but hey, I want you all to know that it's good to be back. It's been way too long since I made a video, but quite frankly, I have not really had material to make a video on. I didn't want this to just be a rant channel. There was a lot of things that has been going on in the gaming world that I have not really been that happy with. And I'm still going to make some rant videos and stuff. It's just, you know, I've got to be in the right mindset to do that in order not to offend everybody. But I'm certainly not going to try to please everyone. I know my Last of Us video has certainly, you know, it offended half of everyone too. But that's just, you know, that's just the state of the world now. You know, you're either on one side or the other. And I hope that this Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom or Tears of the Kingdom, say I'm already dividing everybody. I hope that it's going to unify everybody. That's what Nintendo has always done well. They have always been able to appeal to everyone. And today is a good day. I'm really happy that we have a name for Breath of the Wild sequel. Take with that what you will, pronounce it however you will. And I'm anxious to read all of your comments and to see what you all think about this, because we're going to have plenty of time until May to speculate on this, and I'm going to play this. We're going to look at the release date before we close the video out. They let the title sit there for a second and let us all, oh yeah, we finally got it. May the 12th of 2023. So we have, you know, when is this now? We're in September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 8 months. Ugh! 8 months! Almost exactly. Today is September 13th. 8 months? You needed 8 more months? What? I mean, this better not end up being a Cyberpunk, Nintendo. I don't care how long it takes. Finish this game. I believe in you. I have respect for you, that whenever you tell us that you need more time, take it. Take your time. Complete it. And lastly, Nintendo has been a company that has prided itself, whether it has said this publicly or not, that when it releases a game, it is complete. It does not have to rely on updates and DLC to complete the game. A lot of you are not accustomed to that. A lot of you are not used to that. But from when I was growing up, and when I went out and rented a game or bought a game on a cartridge or on a disc, it was complete. There was no such thing as DLC. If it was, it would be on disc too. So that's what I'm saying. Release the game complete. And here's another thing I want you to comment on. One last thing. How much is the game going to cost? Will it be $60 American or 70? Like everything else now. Thanks, Sony. So, let me know. Anyway, folks, like and subscribe, please. I'm trying to get over 100 subscribers, and I'm going to do my best to grow this channel and talk about things that you all want to have a discussion about. I know this is a small channel. I'm not going to, you know, imagine or try to pretend that it's not. But hey, you all are helping me grow, and I like to have real subscribers too, real people, not bots. And people that are actually going to not only discuss things with me, but not agree with me, challenge me on what I'm talking about. I love it. I love this because you all have helped change my mind about things, you know, certain things already. So this is great. Anyway, guys, on to the next one. See you then. And cut.